In 1976, I had the opportunity to go to Brazil and to go to the Amazon. So I flew to an area near the border with Bolivia called Rondonia, and there we just established a mission, the mission of Coqual. And in the general area, they had just made contact a couple of years earlier with a group of indigenous people called the Surui. And things had not always gone well. Surui had lived in those forests since God's creation, and they still lived that way. They wore no clothing, they used only what they found in the forest, and there had been some conflict with the farmers who were cutting down the forest, so that a couple of farmers were found with an arrow in the back, and a couple of Indians had been found floating down the river. And it was very sort of tense and rather dangerous. But there was a Kumbuni sister, Sister Maria Luisa Poli, who was a nurse, and she was recognized by the Indians as La Doctora. And she could come and go as she pleased. So when I got there the next day, she says, "Would you like to come with me and see the Surui?" Which was like being in the National Geographic. And so of course I said yes right away. And then we started walking, and she was going up ahead, and there was nobody there, but she kept on saying, this is Joe, a friend of mine. He is not with the Indian Bureau. So then after about an hour, a bunch of men came out with these long bows and arrows. And the reason why they are so big, so long, is because they have no metal. So they need something longer to be able to do some damage. Then we arrived in the village where only the chief was there with all the women and the children. And we sat on a log, and he sat next to me, and he started smacking me on the shoulder and talking to me, and I figured when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I did the same thing with him. It seemed to go along. And then he went for my pockets and found nothing, and he was sort of upset, like a child that didn't find the cookies, you know. And then later on, we went into their hut. It was a long, oblong building where several families lived together. They had a hammock and a fireplace for each family. And they lived, everything they had was from nature, except some pots and pans that the sister had given. And that was my first encounter with these people who were the kings and queens of the forest. They owned it. I felt very much that I was their guest at their will and pleasure. And fortunately, it was their pleasure. And I saw them again 20 years later, returning to the same area. And by then, unfortunately, the government had taken over and put them in a reservation. And they looked like a bunch of beggars. And our sisters were still there. And they had a pharmacy where they had both our medicine and the traditional forest medicine that they appreciated. And they were working on trinkets, which we have a whole display here. And everything, as colorful as they are, there is nothing painted with outside paint. Everything is from nature.